we have a special bonus, which is that my colleague, Amr Hamzaoui, is in Cairo, and we have him on the telephone. He's going to give us a quick update on how he sees the signs in Cairo, and if we can keep the telephone line open, he might be able to take a couple of your questions. So, Amr, can you hear me now?
I can hear you well, Michelle.
Okay, wonderful to have you with us, Amr. So please tell us, how do you see the situation going? How do you see the security situation and the political situation developing at this point?
Right. Let me start by the second, which is the political situation, and let me excuse the fact that I am at a checkpoint right now, so it might turn a bit loud. With regard to the political situation, and I find it quite challenging to separate in my mind between the analysts and the activists who I have come to be in the last days. So it might sound more like an activist and less as an analyst, but I hope you will still find it useful. What is happening politically is that we finally have a sort of a political roadmap for the way ahead, for the transitional period. The interview which General Süleyman, the Vice President, gave a few minutes ago, and it was clear what he was going to say. A bit of what he said was leaked already. Sounded very positive at 4 levels. One, he opened up the transitional period with regard to the constitutional amendments to more than Article 76 and 77. He spoke specifically about Article 88, which is the article that pertains to the judicial supervision over Egyptian elections. And he even said that whatever is going to be agreed upon as an article in the Constitution that needs to be amended in the timeline given, which is 70 days, and the Constitution articles can be looked at depending on the outcome of his dialogue with the opposition. This sounded encouraging. The second issue which sounded encouraging as well was the fact that he said he has started already his dialogue with the opposition and that he did not exclude anyone. I mean, what he said about the Muslim Brotherhood was quite encouraging in that context, that they do have a chance. It's a precious chance, as he said, and he is encouraging them along with the WAFD and the Tajammu parties that are yet to join the dialogue and speak with him. The third level, which is sort of was one of the central demands that we, and here I'm referring to a group of people who put out yesterday a statement, maybe you read it, Michelle and everyone else. We are being called Lajnat al-Hukama, which is the committee of wise men, the first time for myself to be characterized as a wise man. We were calling on the president to give the vice president all the presidential powers needed to manage the transition. And he has started to manage the transition effectively today. It's what he said. So we are seeing a delegation, even without an announcement of presidential powers, to Vice President Süleyman to manage the transitional period. The fourth encouraging sign of the Vice President is that he said he and the authorities are going to put on trial everyone who was responsible for the violence last night, the violence today at the Tahrir Square, as well as the violence in the last days. And he said that the young demonstrators who were detained and activists who were detained are going to be freed as long as they were not implicated in violence. And as you know, all of them were not implicated in violence. So these were encouraging signs and a sort of a roadmap for how to transition to democracy in Egypt. Now, what remains contested and what's going to be a question for the next days is the following. Number one, one of our demands and other people's demands were to dissolve the parliament, which was its 2 chambers, outcome of rigged elections. And General Süleyman said, and he had an argument about the timeline, that if you dissolve the parliament, you will not have enough time to amend the constitution. He said, let's amend the constitution, get it right for the presidential elections. He assured everyone that the democratic demands of the young movements as well as the opposition parties will be respected. Let's get them amended with this current parliament and see what will come next. This is going to be an issue of contestation, probably part of the dialogue which he has with parties as well as with personalities like the group which put out the statement I am referring to. The second point of contestation is basically to end, which we demanded particular, Zemani has worked to end the violence immediately against activists as well as against demonstrators in Cairo and other places across the nation. And he has promised to end the violence immediately and made it very clear that this was not the responsibility of state institutions or state authorities, but drug elements apparently within the security apparatus. He referred even to businessmen, corrupt businessmen, and so on and so forth. But the end of violence is key. The third issue is that he is asking everyone to stop demonstrating, free at Tahrir Square, and of course refrain from staging a massive demonstration tomorrow. This remains contested among different protesting groups and activists. I tend to see it as a concession which now we have to give, since the roadmap is clear, and since we are entering into negotiations, and since some concrete steps were announced. Finally, there is a great need for safeguards, constitutional safeguards, political safeguards, as well as safeguards from the military establishment as to how the transition is going to be managed. I guess this is an issue which will be sort of a gradual process, not too long, but we basically are looking at 6 months, 200 days, as he said. So we need guarantees, we need safeguards, and he will still have to assure people that this is not going to be violated, the commitment to democratic change and reform. That's it from my side, and I'm happy to take any questions from the audience.
Okay, if I could just start with one quick one. There was one word that I didn't hear in your presentation, Mubaarak. What's the deal? What's Süleyman offering here in terms of, does Mubaarak continue to be there during this 200-day transition or not?
Yes, well, the agreement, Michelle, and the consensus, and I'm not sure about the Muslim Brotherhood, and I'm not sure about Al-Baradei, but other groups as well as independent personalities have agreed on the following formula, which is President Mubaarak is going to stay in office as more or less, quote unquote, a honorary president. He will delegate the authorities to manage the transitional period to the Vice President Süleyman, who has started with that management today. This is a face-saving solution, which is, to my mind, wide accepted in Egypt among many people. President Mubaarak, in his last speech, has appealed very emotionally to Egyptians by stating that Egypt is his country, he was born here, and he would like to die here. Of course, the calls to remove President Mubaarak was not to remove him from the country, but to remove him from power. What we are seeing is an indirect application of that by giving Vice President Süleyman the authorities to manage the transitional period. I guess this is an issue which will remain contested among some groups. I myself don't see it as problematic, and I see it as a face-saving strategy which we need to manage a safe transition to democracy. We cannot go on with the violence and the chaos which we had, and the rogue elements, be it in the NDP or in the security apparatus, need to be brought under control. People are terrified, are running out of food, are running out of oil, of gasoline, and so on and so forth. So it's a compromise, and I guess it satisfies many people, and I am one of them.
Okay, Amr, thank you very much.